This is Akoth Otieno, and you're listening to Metakay, a podcast dedicated to the new generation of makers. Hi everyone, this week I'm joined by Kwaku Kyere, a fashion and textile designer and the founder of Metakay, a Ghanaian luxury brand defined by bold textural designs with a splash of vibrant colors. We're close friends, so as is expected, the conversation meanders. Today we talk about the joys of process, the danger of single stories, and his creative journey. Hi Kwaku, welcome to the show. Tell us more about yourself. Who are you?
Kwaku is Kwaku.
We can do better.
Oh God, this reminds me of like being in school. Write an essay about myself. So I'm Ghanaian. I'm a fashion designer, fashion illustrator, and a textile surface print designer. But I think I do all the rest for my brand, the illustration and then the print design. Kwaku loves fashion. Kwaku loves art. Kwaku loves comedy. Kwaku loves anything that gives the heart peace and the mind rest, or the heart rest and the mind peace, any of them. So yeah, I'm a fun person. I guess you know that. And I love spontaneous things, and I love to live in the moment as well. So yeah, that's Kwaku.
So speaking of art, last night you sent us this your latest collection, and I love it.
Oh, you gossip! You gossip!
I have been obsessed, and I can't wait to see what that collection looks like. But mostly it was your inspirations behind it, because it was inspired by the Mondrian. And I was just wondering, why that specifically?
I got stuck. You know, sometimes you get stuck when it comes to creating. And I had no direction for the collection. I had no plan. I had nothing. So I think I was just having a chat with a friend. It was like, oh, I came across these list of movies on Instagram I think you should watch. So I think, and then we also had a chat about fashion and everything. So when I was watching the movie and I got to the movie about Yves Saint Laurent. I don't know if I pronounced it well. YSL, let's put it that way. Before the French people come for me. YSL. And then I think he used that artwork to create some pieces. And then that also shot him up in the fashion industry. So I saw the pieces and I was like, wait a minute. Imagine this is not plain, because YSL did it in plain. How about we do it in a fabric manipulation? And then I just researched and I realized a lot of people have used it. And I was like, wait, so we need to try this. So I just sketched that and then put it down. And I showed it to a couple of people and they were like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. We can't wait to see. So that made me keep it. It wasn't necessarily the inspiration. If you recall, the pre-call we had before this, the inspiration had to do with the Metakay woman, with the Sex and the City. And then that was also an inspiration. A friend was like, you know what? I think this will be used for your brand. So the Mondrian art would be for, oh my God, I have to visit my notes. Would be for the Metakay woman who is corporate and can also fall under business casual. So that's kind of a vibe. But I didn't want to go plain. I wanted to try something new. So this is something I'm yet to see physically. And my team and I, fingers crossed, I hope we achieve this, because if we achieve this, oh Lord, I'll literally hang the dress in my room and look at it every morning.
Your brand is more of a collector's heaven, so to speak. It's so textural, it's so vibrant, the colors are forever, right? But also what I'm now suddenly realizing is that you draw a lot of inspiration from film. Tell me a bit about Sex and the City. And why Sex and the City, especially for the Metakay woman?
Girl, I'm actually coming to expose my nakedness in public. So if you look at the Sex and the City movie, it's filled with these four characters. Okay. You have Samantha, you have Kyrie, you have Miranda, you have Charlotte. Looking at these four best friends together, talking about each other's sex life, helping, traveling together, like mostly doing things together. And in my head, I'm like, the Metakay woman, in as much as she's bit uptight. Once she's in her clique, she's herself. She likes to gossip. She likes to go for art shows. She likes to write. I mean, it cuts across. It cuts across. But when I was starting the brand, I was I had a vision of my clients being someone who loves art, someone who loves details. So with such people, you don't have to explain yourself to them that, oh, the fabric to this, that is why it's going for this price. There are some people who will be like, oh, you just got this fabric from the thrift market. But if you have a client that understands your work, that understands your process, it's quite easy. But then again, I was caging myself. So when my friend spoke to me about the Metakay women and that Sex in the City, I was like, wait, we look at Samantha in there, and she is the sexy woman,
Hmm.
She is, she dresses to flirt. She flirts to get what she wants, basically, you know. And you look at Carrie, who is a bit, not a bit, she's uptight. You look at Miranda, who loves the business casual. And you look at Charlotte, the old money stay-at-home wife. So, I feel people don't really understand who the Metakay woman is. In their mind, the Metakay woman is, in summary, a lawyer. She's just about her work. She's uptight. She doesn't go out. She doesn't party. I'm not talking about the 21st century lawyer. I'm talking about.
Because I was like, you're talking to a lawyer, right?
I have to make that clear. I'm not talking about the 21st century lawyer. I'm talking about the 16th and 17th century lawyers, the uptight ones who don't do anything. So the Sex and the City in relation to Metakay, it's more or less like a brief or summary of who the Metakay women, let me put it that way, women are. You get. So Metakay woman, it's sexy. She is uptight when she has to be uptight. She can go business casual when she has to go business casual. And she can be old money stay-at-home wife. So her style, in as much as she keeps true to her signature, her style tells who she is.
I feel like we might have jumped the gun. We went
Oh,
straight
sorry.
to the Metakay woman without really telling people what Metakay is. So tell us a little bit about the brand. Maybe that would be a good place to start. What inspired the brand and at what point?
I've always been a lover of haute couture. But then again, I realized when you research about haute couture, I mean, people pronounce that word differently. This is how I think I like to pronounce it. So no one should come for me. Let me put a disclaimer out there. So when you take haute couture, it's look at the process, the embellishment, the embroidery. It takes time. So the thing comes out and it's it's like spectacular. So I'm always intrigued by that. So even though I never thought I would be starting a fashion brand, I've always channeled my passion for things into my work. So when Metakay started, I think I just wanted to incorporate that passion in there that it should have a bit of haute couture. But then again, it shouldn't be extremely expensive. I mean, it should be something the middle class and the elite can afford, you know. So it was just making like haute couture ready to wear. Even though when the fashion people hear me say this, they'll come for me. That luxury has to be luxury. Luxury doesn't have to be accessible to every people. Yes, I get it, but it should be accessible to a number of people. When they do haute couture, it's just for 2 or 3 people because of the time it takes, because of the fabrics used. But then again, we can make haute couture ready to wear. At least it should be for 50 people or less than 100 people. So the whole idea of Metakay is to make haute couture ready to wear and also haute couture for the elite people.
We throw around the word luxury like confetti these days. What does luxury mean for you?
Most people judge luxury by 2 things: aesthetics and the process.
Mhm.
Okay. So to me, I'll say luxury is craftsmanship. The process of what a Dior bag goes to become a Dior bag, a Rolex watch comes out to become a Rolex watch, a Philippe comes out to become a Philippe. it's the process. I didn't know where I had to put my brand, whether luxury or just a normal brand. But it was my clients or people on social media who positioned my brand like that. So somebody would say and be like, oh wow, this is luxury. So it drew my attention that wait, everybody is calling their brand a luxury brand. Then we might as well make it one because they understood the process.
Earlier on, I was talking to someone about how we get to this place where we get our signature. How did you nail that signature? What was the process to that moment? Did you go to fashion school? Did that in one way or the other influence how you go about your work?
So let me answer the second question first. Did I go to fashion school? I'll say yes and no because I went to the university and the university was offering art. Under the industrial arts, we have ceramics, we have metals, and we have textiles and fashion. And I didn't want to play with that. Sorry, no offense to the ceramic people. And I wasn't ready to go and hammer any metals with that big mask. With the splittering fire thing. I don't even know the name for those things.
Oh, the welding?
The welding, thank you.
Yeah.
Those little sparks that come out?
Yeah.
Girl, like, stay away from it. Stay away from it.
Seriously, I'm learning how to
wanted
sculpt
something
right now. I'm learning how to do metal sculptures, and a lot of it is welding. So I get you. But I love it though.
Oh, girl, all the best. All the best. But metal sculptures are amazing.
Yeah.
Really amazing.
I think I'm enjoying the process.
Amazing. Probably might end up being like the bomber. He has started using metals now.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Remember when I told you I took a break from making clothes, right? I was looking for other things I could be able to manipulate in that sense. I think of it as material research, right? If I wanted to do sculptures, what does sculptures look like in the realm of fashion, at least for me? I am at that period where I am doing a lot of research, and to just experimenting with a lot of media, really. Back to school.
I can't wait to see a metal and knitted work together. Anyway, we move. So I ended up doing fashion and textiles, but during my time in school, the textiles was more than the fashion. We had more textile courses than the fashion courses. So I don't know if I should call it a fashion school, but for now we can say it's a fashion school because they are doing fashion separately, they are doing textiles separately. And then how did I nail this signature? I don't know. I feel I was blessed with that because a lot of people struggle with signatures when they are starting their fashion brand. But for me, let me just give you the backstory, it'll make more understanding. So after school, there's no work, you're trying to figure yourself out. And I just wanted to also leave the country. So I started applying. My friend, we started applying to fashion shows. And mind you, because I used to be, not used to be, I was focusing more on illustration then. I used to have collections designed on my iPad. So when it was time to apply for these shows, I just took one of the collections I had designed recently and then I shared it. I just shared it to fashion shows. And then none of them got back to me, but it was only one. That was Africa Fashion Week Amsterdam. They got back to me and they were like, oh my God, we love your sketches. Can we use it for our promotion? And yes, we have selected you to come and take part. And I was like, Jesus is Lord. How am I going to take part in this? Because I have no money. Literally, I have no connections. I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. So then again, I prayed, actually prayed. And then I had to make my vision come to pass. I didn't want just a plain fabric. So I went on YouTube and then I typed in fabric manipulation methods and I came across smocking. And then I realized it's used for a lot of interior stuff, throw pillows, cushions, bed sheets. I was like, wait, there might be something in there. So I had a piece of fabric at home and then I did a sample. And oh my God, I loved it. I loved it. I was like, no, this is it. This is it. This is it. So I produced those things, went to Amsterdam, and then came back. And then fast forward, I started my own brand. But then again, I didn't want to be stuck to one smoking because I realized somebody in Congo was doing something similar. So I was like, oh my God, they are copying me. They are copying me. And I researched on him and I was like, oh, he's been in the system. So I took a plan that, every year I release another smoke. So the second year I released another smoke. And then the third year, that was in Lagos Fashion Week, I released the smoke that has taken that has made a lot of waves. So the wavy smoke.
Yeah.
So I started with the wavy smoke, and then it got a lot of traction. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't we use this as the main DNA? And then when it's in people's faces, we can introduce the other types. Because right now, if you go and introduce the other types, you'll be known for smoking, but not one particular one. You get it? So that's how we nailed the DNA for Metakay.
Okay. So post Amsterdam, is that when you decided you wanted to start a brand?
Before that, Metakay already existed as a fashion illustration brand. Even under my fashion illustration, it was more into designing, idea development, that kind of thing. That was my educational journey because that has helped me with my brand now. You know, so Metakay already existed as a fashion illustration brand, and after Amsterdam, I worked and I had the opportunity to be on a school seminar. And then the schedule for attending the seminar, I couldn't make it. I had to choose one. So I chose the seminar. And then I resigned. I used to work at Christy Brown, and my time at Christy Brown felt like me going to an entire fashion school because I learned from production to business. And if I'm supposed to put down my life, okay, the company that has had great impact on me is Christy Brown. I used to work with, I did my national service at APM, which was a shipping company. Yeah, and as much as I took a bit of corporate lifestyle from there, Christy Brown actually opened my eyes to the world of fashion. And everywhere I am, I would say I'm forever grateful. Like I'm forever grateful. So I resigned from Christy Brown, and then the seminar was over. So a friend called me, and then he was like, Kwaku, I was going through your like the old designs we did. Mind you, he was the one who stitched my clothes for me from Amsterdam because he had a fashion school. So he got some of the students to work on my pieces for me. So he called me and was like, "Oh, Kwaku, you remember the designs we did? There was this one particular skirt that I think the corporate people will like it because we've not seen anything like that." I was like, okay. So I jumped on a call with another friend who is into accessories, and she's called Ajele. Her brand is Ajele GH. So I spoke to her, and then she also inspired me. So then again, I took on the challenge. I contacted my friend who was a photographer, Alfred, and I was like, Alfred, what do you want to shoot for me? He said you want to shoot for me long time ago if I start making clothes. So I think this is the time to take the opportunity. So Alfred shot for me, and then the pictures were so amazing. Like up to now, I still look at the pictures. I'm like, whew, breath of life. Like this is good. And then I posted on social media, and no orders was coming in. And I was like, okay, then that is it. Nobody's going to order. And then someone was like, if you want people to order, they need to see a celebrity in it. I was making a bit of money from their fashion illustration because I was working with this New York company that I design for them, and then they pay me. So I used that money to buy fabrics, and then now I started gifting celebrities, and then yeah, it started taking from there, and then released the collection, and yeah, you gain the traction.
I want to go back to this idea of building, especially with friends, which I think it's somehow important when you're starting out. Because I mean, when you're starting out, you already had an ecosystem of sorts, right? You had a photographer friend, you had a jewelry designer friend, you had people who, people who would show up.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's that support.
Oh.
Yeah, that support that is very, very, very instrumental when we're starting out. We were talking about your sister. We are moving this to family territory now. We were talking about your sister and how influential she has been.
My sisters, actually.
Brand building, right?
Sisters.
Oh, sisters. You're the last one?
Yes.
Ah, okay. So how has your family been supportive in that regard? Like, how did they embrace your idea of being a creative when you decided you wanted to be one?
Well, my mom and my dad are still not so good about it. They are the typical African I said African country. They are the typical African parent that they want you to go to school. They want you to do a white collar job. But I don't blame them. I realized they act the way they act because of fear. they've not seen anyone who has been an entrepreneur in the family, or mostly who has taken fashion design up and has been successful. So my mom used to sew, and I think when they used to sew at that time, they used to sew tablecloths and all those little petty stuff. And when she saw the woman, I think their boss didn't have, I don't know how to put it, but their boss didn't have the modernized type of fashion, like the Kofi and Science and the whatnot. So, like these roadside seamstresses, that kind of thing. So she's always, she's scared that I might not make something good out of my life, or I'll not be able to take care of myself with this path I've taken. But one funny thing is, when the sponsored travel comes, like a shows invite you and then they pay for flights and everything, and then they'll be like, yeah, that's my son. And in my head, I'm like, okay, is this not hypocrisy? You guys want to support the bad times, but when it's the good times, and then you're like, oh, that's my son. Because I remember one scenario, my auntie had come from the States, and then I was going to Equatorial Guinea. So my parents accompanied me to the gate, and then before the Uber arrived, my dad was just telling my auntie, yeah, so we didn't want him to do fashion, but now see, we are so proud of him and all that. And I was standing there and I was just laughing. I was like, oh God, have mercy. And I was like, I see. But I came back down and then they were like, hey, you have to find a job, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, we are still moving. But among my family, my two sisters have been very supportive, because it was my sisters who spoke to my dad for me to read visual art in school. And my dad didn't want me to read visual art. He wanted me to read science or journal art. And I mean, I don't think that was the path God had for me. So it didn't work out. I spoke to him, he understood, even though he was reluctant. Yeah, so my parents' support is on and off, but my sister's support is eternal, I should put it that way.
But I think when it comes to parents, I mean, most of us African creatives have the same story, right? But then I think with time, the idea is to perhaps, as they can see now, that things are working, the days when things are working and the days when things are not. And I think there's just this belief that perhaps it has to be the other way around, that we have to tell them, or not necessarily teach them, but let them know that we live in a world where some of these ideas are possible. Like, it's possible to make a living out of fashion, for example. Although if you're speaking about it from a structural
that's where
sense,
the fear is.
because maybe, but they're also looking at it from a structural sense, like, what are some of the systems put in place to make sure that someone can get out of school and be an artist or be a fashion designer. But it's a global village, right? You always have access to markets. Yeah. That aside, I think you have figured out what your brand is and the message you want to put across, and you're reaching out to the people you're trying to reach out to, right? But what was the process of getting to that point of, okay, this is what my brand is, this is who I'm looking to talk to, and this is what I'm trying to say? So what is it you're trying to say?
African can produce luxury without Ankara or tie and dye. That's the message I actually want to send across, because sometimes you apply for competitions and then they're expecting that because you're an African designer, you have to use Ankara, or you have to use tie and dye. And I or Kente, I don't think, in as much as that is good, we are keeping our roots and everything, I feel we should explore more. I feel that the West is trying to box African designers to use specific fabrics so that we know you're an African designer, or specific designs. But I'm actually happy with what's going around. I mean, you look at African designers and they are exploring, like, all over, with their cowries, even with the kente, new designs coming up. I feel it's a revolution. We are trying to redefine the fashion luxury, like what African luxury says or speaks. So that's the message I want to put across. I'm part of the force redefining African luxury.
Yes, and there's also that this belief that, I mean, a lot of stories are coming out of Africa, or generally, and it's important for every single one of these stories to come out, as opposed to the global scene having this singular story or idea of Africa and what the fashion industry looks like.
Yeah, I think but there are some things in fashion, it can't be taught. You would have to either observe it from another person, or you have to experience it yourself. And I think I learned all these process from Christy Brown, the way they go about their things, explaining of the brand, the kind of brands they look up to, the way they run things. So it gives you a fair idea that, oh, okay, if I want to go into the luxury brand or if I want to go into ready to wear, there are some do's and don'ts. And some of the do's and don'ts is not something that we can teach you in school. You have to experience it for yourself, or you have to observe. So I always say this, that if you want to be a fashion designer, it's good to intern with a fashion house. You know, it's good to intern with a fashion house. I'm not saying a roadside. Well, it depends on what you want to do. If you just want to be an apprentice, you can go to the roadside. I mean, tailors or seamstresses. But if you want to build a brand, intern with a bigger brand. You don't have to intern for 5 years or 10 years. You can just do 1 year or 2 years. And then you humble yourself to learn, But now people just go for internship and they don't even show up, or they'll be like, oh, it's my birthday, so I can't come to work. And then you want to come out with what, you know? So people should be willing to learn in humility. And I think once you intern, it would help you.
What do you have to say to someone who's trying to build a brand?
It's three things I would want to say: patience, prayer, perseverance. Patience, prayer, perseverance. Don't rush. Now, people want to start a brand and the next day they want to be on the cover of Vogue, or the next day they want to be in Paris Fashion Week, or the next day they want to be rolling with the big guns. No, 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 no. If you have a brand, work towards placing value on your brand. Okay, you should work towards placing value on your brand, and don't rush it. Don't rush it. See, there's joy in going through the process, because imagine if, let's say, in 5 years time or 10 years time, when I have like a solid place, and then you walk into the showroom, you're like, oh my god, Kwaku, this is so good. If I don't go through the process now, and then boom, I have a showroom, how am I even, what lessons am I going to bring from the past to run the showroom or to run the production house? Because I skipped a process. So it'll feel rushed, and in such things you can't actually maintain things if you don't go through the process. Look at the diamond, for instance, the process the diamond goes through. Even gold, all precious minerals go through a process before we see what it is. So actually, don't rush at all. Be patient. You should be prayerful. I feel in as much as we are in the physical world, there's a spiritual world somewhere. I know people don't believe in it, but for me, I do believe that yes, you should have a supreme being, because Charlie, some things, I mean, we are human. If you don't have a supreme being, or if you don't believe in something, trust me, I don't know what to put it, but I don't think you can live life to the fullest.
I agree. Yeah, I think we have to always believe in something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And then lastly, I'll say perseverance. Passion is a sport for the rich. And if you are not mentally strong, I would advise you not to go into fashion. Mentally, emotionally, these two things, I would advise you not to go into fashion.
It was really good having you today.
Oh, that's when I was enjoying it. Oh. I mean, I can't wait to have my friend here, Shahazad and Oshobo. We all have to be on this podcast. Oh my god. And that's going to be like 2 hours straight. You're not going to put us on a time limit. Do you understand?
Why it's
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. That was Kwaku Kyere, the founder of Metakay. If you like this episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please don't forget to rate and follow. I am Akoth Otieno, and you've been listening to Impact Chai.